Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm doing a deck profile on Trunks Future. Now I crucified this on my tier list for sure, and I will say maybe that was a bit of a naive perspective. Now that I've actually had the time to look into blue as a whole, as a control leader, Trunks is definitely still viable. I still don't think it's going to win events for sure. It could maybe top events. I don't know what it is about Trunks. It's just I just feel like the actual playstyle, it's not going to be quick enough. And once again, I'm holding it against the standard of can it beat Topku, and that's what I don't know. But what I will say though is that as far as blue leaders go, when it comes to removal, Trunks is definitely up there with the best. So there is a possibility that it can compete with Topku for sure. So we're going to go through a list. This is a very version 1 list, like I said. But I just think that the support that came for Trunks itself, it wasn't very strong. I was a bit disappointed, to be honest, considering the buff that Vegeta got with that Bulma, the buffs that Goku Black has seen. Like, Trunks was just really, it just feels like it was held back. There was nothing archetype specific about it, apart from one Vegeta card, which, yeah, for me, I don't know if it's enough to take it. I still don't. It might not be trash tier. That's all I'm gonna say. It might be the tier above, as in locals to maybe can top. But I still think that the leader is definitely better than what I thought it was when it comes to that tier list. So we'll run through the list. So we run 4 of the new vanillas. It's for no reason. Literally, it's these two. You can pick whichever ratio you want between the two. It really doesn't matter. And then we run 4 Mais. Mai, for me, is an interesting one. Once again, I think that looking at it from the perspective of Topku, their goal is to beat you down as quickly as possible. And the same with U7. I don't know how needed Mai will be in those matchups, so this could just be charge targets and combo power once it gets to those games. But when you get to the later stages of the match against like yellow, even blue, and I suppose green as well, Mai is definitely good for those earlier turns just because you want to get to your awaken as quickly as possible. The problem with Trunks I've always found with Mai is that your hand size ends up out of control. Like, when you go to your awaken turn, if you're not playing against a crit leader, you can have 12, 13 cards. And when you're trying to play at 7, 8 cards, it kind of lends against that. But for that being said, you can obviously use those cards as free combo more or less at that point. But I don't know, it's just, Mai's been an interesting one for me for all of set 1. I love it in Goku Black for sure. I absolutely adore it in Goku Black, but for Trunks and Vegeta, it's a bit iffy for me, but I've included it just because most people will ask why not. But again, I don't know how much of this we'll see play. And then for Harumaki, it's Bulma, but for Trunks, it's 7 or fewer cards in hand, your leader gains plus 10, you combo this off, so you're swinging 40k with this card. It's still a ridiculous card, for sure, so there's no reason not to run this. And then for Pilafs, Pilaf can literally cycle any of these cards here that you see. There's no reason not to run Pilaf. It can also recycle the Final Hope Slash, which we also run a couple of copies of. So, yeah, Pilaf's still one of the best cards in blue. No reason not to run that either. And then we run 2 Self-Awakened Trunks and 2 Self-Awakened Goten. These ones were interesting. I didn't know if I was honestly going to include them. But if our opponent's playing a slow game, there's no reason not to include them. Mai obviously only takes 2 life, so, you know, turn 1 you go down to 6, your opponent swings you down at 5. It's just a way for you to get to your awaken as quickly as possible without having to play another Mai, for example. And then we run 4 of this Trunks. This is the 10k combo, and it's 30k attack power, and when it attacks at the end of your turn, you place the card at the bottom of your deck. Now, this card, obviously from your leader skill, you can bounce it back to hand to protect it from bottom decking itself. But I will say this, the Vegeta card, which we'll get to in a minute, it does lend into the strategy of allowing you to bottom deck this, meaning that that effect can be used on something maybe a bit better. You know, sometimes if I only have 1 Pilaf or 1 Harumaki, I like to bounce one of these back to hand instead of this, just because it means that we have that going into the next turn as well. So I do like that we're now not pressured into trying to bounce this card back. So there is that. So it's definitely a good card for that. And again, for 3 energy between the Harumaki and this, you know, we're swinging 30k with the Trunks and 40k with our leader, and then with our leader we could just bounce back the Harumaki, and again we've got that going into the next turn. And And then I still run 3 of the Trunks Self-Awakeners. Once again, it's a Self-Awakener that bounces a card of 5 or less. This is very, very good spot removal for those really annoying cards. So for example, yellow, if you're playing against Cooler, we just get to bounce a 0k back to hand and they can't, you know, they're going to have to spend their entire turn re-establishing it, which I don't mind. This is the control element of the deck, so again, I think 3 Trunks is fine. You could argue 4, but I don't know what I would cut for it, personally. And then we run 3 of the new Vegetos. Again, this is where we're getting into the control element of removal, so we choose one of our opponent's battle cards at the cost of 1 or less and bottom deck it, and if we have 7 or fewer cards in our hand, all battle cards in our opponent's battle area are reduced by 1, at least their cost, sorry, is reduced by 1. So we can bottom deck a 2 or less. Meaning that with this, like between either of these cards and their leader skill, we could potentially remove 2 cards a turn, if not more. But again, my issue with the Mai is that on the turn 3 where you're likely going to want to play this, your hand size is going to be too big that you can't get this effect, so you are only going to be bottom decking cantrips essentially, or vanilla 1 costs. So I don't know how I feel about it. Once again, testing will tell me that, but we'll wait and see what happens. And then this is the Vegeta card, so it's a 0k combo, which is the only thing I don't like about this card. I really don't know why it didn't at least just get 5k. It's not that particularly good a card, and because you run 0ks, my issue is that I feel like I had to pick between this and Goku Black just because of the number of 0ks, which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. I might have to still run Goku Black, because you will see when we go through the list I have cut it, but it did not feel like a good cut. It really didn't. And this is arguably one of the best cards in Trunks to use for the 4 cost. For your 4 cost for the Goku Black to play. Because if this gets bottom decked, you know, we tap 6 tap 6, we play Goku Black, we attack, we add a card back to hand, hopefully we're still at 7 or less, then we attack, we play this, we now have a 30k attacker, and then when this attacks, we play this from the bottom of the deck, meaning that we have 2 30k attacks. So we've swung for 40, 30 and 30, plus our leader being 20, maybe more depending on our energy, very unlikely, but I like Vegeta, I do like the card. The fact it's a 0k combo makes it very icky for me to want to run it in the deck, and especially run multiple copies. I don't know how I feel about it. It's one of those ones where, again, I would need to test to see if it actually holds any value or whether it's just worth cutting. So we'll wait and see. And then we still run 2 of the 5 cost Vegetas. Once again, this could go up to 3 just because it is a double striker, so it could be our best game winner. But again, with blue, I just think that the way that blue is geared right now, it's got so many high power poke attackers that I think just beating our opponent down 1 life at a time is maybe the better way to play it. But this is here just in case we don't have that luxury. You know, if we think that we're not going to survive the turn, you know, we can tap 5, play this, and then just dump on a double striker. That's pretty much the only reason it's there. But yeah, again, we'll see what happens ratio-wise. And because we run 2 of this and 2 of this, the Goku Black being another 0k for me, it was just a big issue. I just don't know how I felt about it. We run Vegito as well. Again, it's a 30k dual attacker for the exact same reason. You know, we can remove a card that's 5 or less. If we have this on board 6 or less, again, it's very unlikely, but it is possible. And then he's just a 30k dual attacker, which again, with our attack power here, it's just a lot of really tall attack pokers. So it's still definitely a good card for this leader for sure. It's now that I'm saying it out loud, I don't know whether Goku Black is just better than Vegeta in this build. I could be wrong. It could just be a case that we want to poke him down into double strike range and then we just look to double strike them for games. So that could change, but we'll wait and see what happens. And then Supreme Kai or Old Kai, once again, the super combo matters not. You just pick whichever super combo suits you. I most like to pick super combos that I can have, you know, stamped in some way, shape or form. So yeah, that's the only reason for picking the Old Kai, really. For Gallic Gun, for me, it's still the best defensive blue card. You know, it replaces itself. It's a plus 15k. It's a very good card. 2 Final Hope Slash, once again recyclable off the Pilaf, and it means that we can start attacking for 25Ks or 35Ks or even 40Ks depending on what situation we're at. You know, for 2 energy, we can swing 60k with our leader. I love those stats. Those are really, really strong stats. So yeah, so for me, Final Hope Slash, there's even an argument to go 3 and 3, but I just personally, on my playstyle, I prefer the Gallic Gun. And then we also run 2 Sinister Sickle. Now, this one will look a bit strange. You know, some people will probably be saying, why not just cut Sinister Sickle and run Goku Black instead, which, again, is fair enough. My main thing is that this is a control deck, so Sinister Sickle leans very, very strongly into removal, and when our opponent is going wide, you know, if you're looking at U7, if you're looking at Top Coup, even Yellow to an extent, us being able to remove 2 4 or lesses, and instead of them going back to the hand, they are getting bottom decked. We can also do our lead skill as well. And the thing that I like about the lead skill, which I didn't really happen on, is with this skill here, all of our opponent's battle cards, if we're at 7 or less, are reduced by 1, meaning that Trunks can actually bounce a 4 or less from our opponent's side of the board. So it's very, very strong, and it's the same with this. We can bounce a 5 or less if we have both of these. Again, with the Vegito, I don't know how likely that it is to continue or at least survive a turn beyond the one it's played, but it's definitely there, and it forces our opponent to, you know, have to deal with this rather than attack life, which again is a win-win for us. So it's definitely a much better deck than I first gave it credit for. I will say that. And again, Final Hope Slash another one. You know, we can bounce a battle card 2 or less, but with this, it's 3 or less. So there's a lot of really good synergy with this Vegito. So there is possibility to up this to 4 for that reason. It is just a 5k, so I don't know what I would arguably cut for it. I don't like the idea of cutting a Mai, but if I am increasing a 5k, I would rather decrease a 5k. And I do not want to decrease the Trunks features because removing a 5 or less is so strong. Like, it's very, very strong. It can literally make or break the game. But Sinister Sickle, for me, if you're playing against what I'm expecting to be the boogeyman of the set, being Top Coup, we need ways where we can just constantly remove their board. And Trunks is actually in a very, very unique position where it can do that. So you never know, Trunks might actually be a very, very solid blue deck. I mean, I'm looking at this list and I'm thinking, do you know what, Trunks is actually far better than I gave it credit for. I don't know how viable it'll be against Top Coup. Once again, I need to play the match to understand where the weakness lies and where the strength is, and the sort of strategy we want to use to beat our opponent into submission, more or less. I think this list is too slow into green, but I'm hoping that green's time has I know it's only been a set, but I'm hoping that green isn't going to be as prevalent this set. I think Broly still will be because it's a 25k leader and it is still insanely strong. But again, I think because of aggro, if I come across Broly at tournaments, I don't expect them to beat the aggro decks, which is just my personal take on it. So if I played this at a tournament and I come across a Broly, I've just come across one person who I feel personally hasn't prepared for the tournament that well. They're maybe just playing a leader that they're very confident on and very comfortable with, but again, if I'm going into a tournament, I look at, you know, what is likely going to be the top contenders, and I think that Top Coup will definitely be one of those top contenders. And again, I think that green doesn't have that good of a matchup into it. And again, I think that because of that, I think that Trunks might actually be quite well positioned to be a dark horse. I could be wrong. I just, like I said, when I thought about it when I did the tier list, I mainly looked at the support the deck got in terms of, like, you know, like the Bulma specific to if you have a Vegeta leader, the Gotenks specific to if you have a Vegeta leader. There are many, many cards that were like, here's a buff and it's if your leader's a Vegeta. The only card Trunks got was this one. And while it's good, yes, this playline here is only good for tall poke damage. It's not particularly strong for anything else. There's no removal in it. And for us being a control deck, it might not be the best way to do it. But once again, the only debate in terms of what I'm looking at changing here, besides some ratios, you know, maybe upping this to 4 or whatever, but I don't know whether or not we could afford to drop the Goku Black. That's my big concern. I think that Goku Black is so strong that based on this playstyle, we might be better off with Goku Black over the Vegeta, or the Goku Black over this 4-cost Vegeta, and we maybe just have to play around with the ratios and maybe include some Zamasus just so that we have some value off of the 6-drop. But I hate the idea in Trunks of tapping 6, and it's the same with Vegeta. I'm not a fan of tapping 6 in Vegeta to play out Goku Black. You're leaving yourself so vulnerable that I don't know if it's worth it. It's the same reason why I don't like the Golden Frieza SCR in Frieza. Just for that specific reason, that you leave yourself very vulnerable. But I don't know. Again, once again, when we get some testing in, this deck might actually prove to be a serious contender. I might have just missed it from the beginning. But it definitely is not the worst blue deck by far. Definitely not the worst. Zamasu takes that honor by a country mile. I think that the deck is trash, but we'll wait and see what happens with that once again. But yeah, I do like this list in particular. I think that I'd be very comfortable playing this list. My only, like I said, my only concern is or at least the number of cards you would have in hand by the time you get to your turn 3 and turn 4. And if your hand size is still too big, you know, you're gonna have a lot of dead cards. I mean, the Harumaki 7 or fewer, Pilaf 7 or fewer, Vegito 7 or fewer. Like there are so many cards, and even this, the Vegito 7 or fewer. And then, yeah, with Gallic Gun as well. It's just, there's so many. For me personally, had Blue not had that handicap of 7 or fewer cards in hand, Blue would be such a snapped colour. It really would. But I guess that's kind of what they have to do with it. And once again, we have the Mai as well. In fact, do you know what? No, you couldn't cut Mai because of the other effect. The ability to just bounce one of our opponent's cards and draw a card if we're ever slightly low in hand size is still worth it. It's still good value. So you never know. Yeah, I don't know. I think when I look at this list, I think it's a strong list. I just don't know how I feel about Trunks as a whole. That could just be me having my blinders on, but I still think it's a solid list. I'm definitely going to test it on the client, and there'll probably be some gameplay videos coming in the next couple of weeks that will definitely have Trunks on the channel. So for anybody who's looking at Trunks next set, give me your feedback. Let me know what you've added in or what you've taken away or what you think I've missed out on. And yeah, we'll have that discussion for sure. I'm so keen to see how this leader plays in set 2. But guys, as always, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and I will catch you all in the next video. Peace.